Close your eyes. Imagine waking up tomorrow and the map of the world looks nothing like what you know. Entire nations gone. Borders that have defined a century of war, conflict and suffering simply do not exist. Instead, one empire, stretching from the Balkans to Baghdad, from Cairo to Constantinople, alive, powerful, and still growing. The Ottoman Empire ruled for 600 years, through plagues that killed half of Europe, through crusades that tried to destroy it. Through the rise of Napoleon and the fall of Rome's heirs. 600 years, 36 sultans, 3 continents, 1 empire. And then, in a single catastrophic decision, it was gone. But history is never inevitable. Every empire that fell could have survived. Every war that happened could have been avoided. Today we ask the question that haunts every historian who has ever studied the ancient world. What if the Ottoman Empire never fell? Our story begins in the summer of 1914. A great war has just erupted across Europe. A powerful nation desperate for allies approaches the Ottoman Sultan with a tempting offer. Join us and we will help you reclaim everything you have lost. In our timeline, the Ottomans accepted. It was the most catastrophic mistake in their history. But in this alternate world, a different voice wins the argument in Istanbul. The reformists, the modernizers, the men who understand that the empire is too broken, too exhausted, too fragile for another war. They convince the Sultan to stay neutral. One decision, one moment, and everything changes. Without Ottoman involvement, the wars in the ancient lands of the empire never happen. Foreign armies never march through its territories. Secret agreements that would carve the empire into pieces are never signed. The Ottoman Empire survives the Great War, wounded but alive. Survival alone is not enough. The Ottoman leadership knows this. To compete with the modern world, the empire must completely transform itself. And in this alternate timeline, it does. A constitutional monarchy is born. An elected parliament takes power. For the first time in 6 centuries, the government is accountable to its people. Railways connect distant provinces. New universities open across the empire's great cities. A new generation of Ottoman citizens from every culture, every faith, every background begins to emerge, educated, ambitious. And for the first time, united by a shared Ottoman identity rather than torn apart by competing nationalisms. Think of it like a multi-ethnic, multi-religious federation, held together not by force, but by justice, shared prosperity, and a reformed political system. By 1930, the Ottoman Empire has a functioning democracy, a growing industrial base, and control over something that will soon make it the richest entity on Earth. Oil. Beneath the ancient sands of the empire's eastern provinces lay the greatest treasure in modern history, the largest oil reserves ever discovered. In our timeline, foreign powers had already seized those territories, and the profits flowed to distant capitals, not to the people whose ancestors had walked those lands for thousands of years. But in our alternate timeline, those territories are still Ottoman, and the new government negotiates fiercely. The majority of all oil profits stay within the empire. The money pours into infrastructure, schools, hospitals, and technology. By 1950, the Ottoman Empire controls more oil than any nation on Earth, and they are keeping most of it. Istanbul becomes the richest city in the world. The empire that was once called the sick man of Europe is now being called something very different, the oil colossus of the East. Ancient lands that in reality became battlegrounds are now the economic engine of the most powerful empire on Earth. Perhaps the most profound difference in this alternate world is the absence of something: borders. In our timeline, foreign powers drew arbitrary lines across ancient lands, creating nations overnight that had never existed before, lumping together peoples who had nothing in common and separating communities that had lived as neighbors for centuries. These artificial lines, drawn in distant capitals by men who had never set foot in the lands they were dividing, became the source of conflicts that continue to this day. In our alternate timeline, none of this happens. The ancient lands of the empire remain unified, not as conquered territories, but as autonomous provinces with their own languages, cultures, and local governments within a shared framework of law and commerce. Different peoples, different faiths, one civilization. And it works. Communities that in reality were torn apart remain neighbors. Ancient cities that became battlegrounds remain centers of culture and trade. And the endless cycles of conflict that defined a century of real history simply never begin. A second Great War comes to this alternate world too. But the Ottoman Empire, as the world's greatest oil power, declares neutrality once again. No nation can afford to attack an empire that controls the energy supply of the entire planet. The Ottomans emerge from the war richer and more powerful than ever before. When the Cold War begins between the great powers of East and West, the Ottoman Empire becomes the ultimate prize. Both sides desperately want access to Ottoman oil. Both offer military alliances, technology, and wealth. The Ottomans take what they need from both and commit to neither. They become the founders of the non-aligned movement, the third superpower, the empire that answers to no one. By 1970, Istanbul is a gleaming world capital of 20 million people, part European, part Asian, part ancient, part modern. Every language spoken, every faith honored, every cuisine shared. It is what the Ottoman Empire always claimed to be, not just a nation, but a civilization. So what would the Ottoman Empire look like today, in 2024? A constitutional monarchy spanning 3 continents, 400 million citizens, the second largest economy on Earth, a nuclear power, a permanent seat at the table of the world's most powerful nations, and living proof that different cultures, different religions, and different peoples can share one world if the framework is just and the opportunity is equal for all. Is this a utopia? No. The alternate Ottoman Empire has its own problems, its own failures, its own injustices. Governing 400 million people across 3 continents has never been, and will never be, simple. But compared to the reality of what happens, the foreign borders, the manufactured conflict, the suffering of generations, it is impossible not to wonder if a different path is possible. History is never clear. The Ottoman Empire fell because choices, some forced, some freely made. These fallen shaped the world for better and for worse. This is the power of alternate history, not to wish the past to be different, but to understand why it happened, and to remember that the choices we make today are vital to history tomorrow. If this journey moved you, subscribe to Historica TV, because the past is never really over.